Hello, everybody, and welcome to another Player 2 review discussion. My name is Matt Houston, and I am here with the legend that is Jess and Matt, and we're talking about Atlas Fallen. How are you, Jess?
I am doing great. I'm very close to the end of Atlas Fallen. Just to flag that from the beginning, I haven't quite hit the end, but it's having
You
a
are
good
very,
time.
very close. You are
Very, very
not far.
close.
Yeah,
Yes,
you could probably go and finish it in 20 minutes
I
and
will
return.
probably go and finish it when we finish recording this. Yeah.
So, Atlas Falling, for those that don't know, is the next game from Deck 13. The people that brought us the first Lords of Fallen and the Surge 1 and 2, all three of which are Souls-like. This is not Souls-like at all, is it?
No, it's hard, but it's
Yeah.
it's not that kind of I want to die hard. It's just like a regular. This is a challenge kind of hard.
Yeah, it's a funny setup too. It gave me a lot of I guess Shadows of Mordor kind of feeling to it in the way it's set up, in that it's got multiple kind of open maps that you can explore with lots of bits and pieces to do, and a kind of funky combat system that I mean is probably the star of the show in a lot of ways.
Yes. Yeah, it's like separate areas that only sometimes join together. Like you leave the first one, and then they're kind of like, you better be sure that you've finished everything in this
Yeah.
area, because you probably won't come back, and then you just can go back.
Yeah,
So it's
yeah.
like, but but
You
yeah,
probably won't want to because you'd be over
yeah.
as hell. Yeah.
But yes, it's not a Souls-like. I think it's much more fun, at least for me, to explore and run around in than a Souls-like is. There's a lot of combat, sure, and the combat is good fun. But it wasn't, for me, the big draw of this game, I guess. No, for me, the big draw of this game is the movement system, where you kind of, when you're just running on normal ground, you will just sprint normally, and then as soon as you get onto what's usually sand dunes, but not always, I guess, you sort of do this like sand slide thing, and you start zooming as if you're like roller skating. It's that kind of motion
Yeah.
through the world, and it feels very smooth, and you can make it faster as you go along, and it's very cool.
It is, the movement is awesome. And once you upgrade your character a bit too, and you add like multiple air dashes and things to it, you can really zip around the map at quite a pace. There's no fall damage either, so you can just go nuts from whatever. And it's a really crazy setup map. Like they've done this. What I really liked is the world design, in how they've created this world that's very clearly been just like raped and pillaged. This whole world has just been used to its last breath, and you get that from the world design, and moving around it is very, very cool with that dashing and then going into the sand surfing, and then very, like, it reminded me a lot of the ways that Spider-Man does, in that movement is so fun. You don't want to use fast travel, and
Yes.
that's like the biggest compliment you can give a movement system, right?
Yeah. And it's kind of for the best, because the fast travel system is one of the things that I actually found the most frustrating, I guess. But yeah, I mean, I didn't want to use it, because I was just like, oh, that's 700 meters away, whatever. We'll just zoom there.
We'll just
Let's
zoom
go.
there.
And
Yeah.
we'll see what we can find along the way, because there's side quests and stuff that you pick up as you go, and I feel like when people gave them to me, I didn't necessarily think too much about what they were asking me to do, because I would be like, oh, I'll get there. Like, I'll zoom past there. It'll pop
I'll
up.
see it. It'll be there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that the way everything kind of flowed together too, it kind of encouraged that sort of style of play, because quite often the side quest you picked up was kind of on the way to your main quest anyway, so
Yeah.
you might as
Yeah.
well, right? Like,
Yeah. Why not? Yeah. And it would very quickly like gate off a new section, where, because the way you progress to new sections is usually that you will upgrade and kind of give yourself like a new power, basically,
Yeah.
like whether it be a stronger air dash, or the ability to kind of interact more with um things in the world by like raising them out of the ground, or crushing them, or whatever it is that you're doing. So yeah, you kind of can mess around and do side quests until you get to a bit where it's like, you're not strong enough to do this. You can't interact with this yet. What are you doing?
Yeah.
Stop that. It's a
Which,
nice clear like barrier.
yeah, your old god mate that pops up. He's pretty clear in telling you, look, not yet, buddy, not yet.
Nah, nah. Calm down. Slow down.
Okay, settle.
Yeah.
We need some upgrades. Speaking
Yeah.
of the god mate, the
Mm.
story, right? This has to use every great fantasy cliche
Yes.
ever in history, right? It's got fallen gods. It's got a really strict religious system,
hmm
and it's got a bigger MacGuffin than the One Ring. So you know,
Yeah. Yep. Yep. hmm
it ladles that tropey fantasy stuff in thick.
Yeah.
But in saying that, I had fun with it, right?
Yeah.
Like it doesn't ever try to hide the fact that it's just a
No.
big old soup bowl of stereotypes, but and it just runs with it. And you know, sometimes that Saturday afternoon kind of movie feel is fun, and I think they've pulled it off pretty well here.
Mm. Yeah, I agree. And like this is the sort of game that I could see myself going back to and just like playing while I had something on in the background, I guess, and really just like I kind of did with Spider-Man. Yeah,
Yeah,
like you said, like swinging around the world or like just kind of surfing through the dunes to pick up random stuff. Ooh, pick up random stuff. Sorry, got enthusiastic on my
and bashing your
surfing
microphone.
motions. Yeah. Um. Yeah. Just kind of as a way to stay in that world, I guess. I don't know. I really clearly was jazzed on the movement system of this
Yeah,
game.
yeah, yeah.
I remember, like, I know it might be because as I've been playing it, I've also been watching a lot of speedruns, but I kind of got not that far into it, and I was like, I think speedrunners are going to love this game because it's got that feel where, like, some of the world feels a little bit broken, like, not broken, like you can't
Yeah, yeah.
interact with it, but there's, like, weird collision and stuff in some of the walls, and, you know, like, you can kind of climb up things you're not supposed to, I guess. Um, and that combined with the like the air dashes and the surfing through the world and everything, I was like, this is
Yeah.
surely
People are
speedrunners
going to
gonna love
break
this game.
this in
Yeah.
interesting ways. I think. I
Yeah.
think there's ways to do it.
Yeah.
Um, Speaking of broken, there was one big issue I had with the game, and that was the
Yeah.
camera.
Mm.
Especially in tight places. There's one particular area, the underground
Mhm.
area,
Mm.
where I had endless trouble with the calendar and the locking onto the enemies, especially the flying enemies. Usually in
Yes.
the big open world, the flying enemies are quite fun because it's really fun to quite juggle through the air and stay
Yeah.
up as long as you possibly can and all that sort of stuff in the fight. But
Yeah.
in that underground, it was just rage inducing. They need to fix that camera. And
Yeah.
hopefully they do quickly because, boy, that really, really took a shine off things.
Yeah. For me, I think the camera was frustrating, as you said, particularly in that underground area where it's
Yeah.
like dark as well,
Yeah.
and there's areas where you can fall, so there's more risk to like just jumping through the air, and also not usually groups of enemies. Like there's a couple of sections where there are bigger
Yeah.
single flying enemies, so you can't jump between them. You just have to kind of attack one.
Yeah.
But yeah, for me the problem was the map. I think, which I sort of alluded to before.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, the map is like fine when you're just using it as a reference to try and figure out where things are mostly. Um but as soon as you go into fast travel, markers disappear.
Yeah.
So if you're
You
like, oh
have to
okay, I'll just
hold a
fast
button
yeah.
for some
Like I'll
weird
just
reason.
fast travel to near where a thing is, but you can't because you have to have looked on the map and been like, okay, that's in this part of the map, and then just figure out which anvil it is that you're trying to fast travel to,
Yep.
because you're gonna have to remember it because you're not gonna know which it corresponds to, I guess. Um, and there are some things where like it'll ask you to go to a place, so the marker will send you towards like a door, um, and you'll go through that door, and it'll be like, no, actually, go back into the other part of the world. Like it's just a bit frustrating in the way it
Yeah.
signposts stuff, I think. Um, which is not, world ending, but I guess just a little bit frustrating when you actually are trying to be like, I want to complete these side quests.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the second there's one that has, for example, two separate markers where it's like, go see these people and these people, it becomes a real struggle to figure out which part of the map and which world it wants you to go to when.
Yeah.
And
And
I don't know if
also,
maybe that's something they'll fix,
I
but yeah.
noticed it had a problem with verticality with that marking too.
Mm.
So identifying whether it's above or below
But
you
yeah.
is also a challenging sort of thing, because there's some quite high places that you can get to with a bit of gymnastics, and sometimes they're up there. You just don't know.
Yep.
So looking up and looking down, people, I advise it.
Yes.
I think though it's clear that this game has been built on a AA budget. It it's lacking a little bit of polish around the edges.
Sure.
But it's almost endearing, and it feels in no way a bad thing, and it also feels like this is a very good effort from a development team that's never made a game like this before.
Yeah.
It holds a lot of, I guess, promise for future titles, maybe in this series or something along similar lines. In that they've kind of taken some things that we've seen before, but added enough of their own twists to things to make it unique. Especially, like we said, the sand surfing is fantastic. Can't get enough of it.
Yeah, I agree. Like it's sort of double A in ways that don't make it any less fun. Like the map stuff is annoying, but I don't really care. Like there were bits where characters were glitching through the walls of tents, and I was like, oh well, never mind.
Yeah.
So what? Just slide on past, you know.
That happens in AAA games, let alone.
Yes, it's true. Well, yeah, you know, walls that were easy to climb when you shouldn't be able to climb them and stuff. Just fun, like broken in fun ways, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, didn't hamper my enjoyment in any way.
So, how's performance on the PC for you? That's a good
Pretty
question
good.
at this point in time.
Yeah.
Because this year hasn't been great for PC.
No. Pretty good. It crashed once. When I was in the middle of a boss fight. Which was frustrating. I think that's because some of those boss fights can get pretty hectic because you're doing a lot of really fast movement and parrying and managing like a swarm of enemies. So I think it just was a little much for the computer in that moment. But for a game that does revolve around like those fast-paced scenes and there's a lot of effects going on, a lot of inputs kind of going into the game, for most of the time, it performed pretty well. No huge issues, just some occasional like it would, you know, bit of screen tearing, and we had some moments of freezing, but it sorted itself out. I feel pretty confident that that's a, you know, thing
day
they'll
one
fix
patch
recently.
thing. Yeah. There is a big day one patch coming that we haven't been playing. Okay. So yeah, they did mention that when they sent the code out. For me on the PlayStation 5, it ran pretty buttery. I had one instance where I loaded in the world and all the textures were completely balked. I quit the game and loaded back up and it was fixed. But, you know, that was, you know, that's the only real issue I came across. It ran at a pretty smooth frame rate. I had it on the performance mode, of course, because like 60 frames on this game, it's a must, really. 30 would be really bad, I think. And it ran really well. It looks good. I think it looks like a fun game. I mean, I think they're smart in using things like sand. While there's a lot of effect work, I don't think it drains power from graphics as much as things like water or, you know, lush forest and things like that do. But in saying that, it is pretty sand.
It's a lot of sand.
It's a lot of sand.
It's good sand. It is good sand.
There are sections where there's no sand, which are just disappointing.
Yeah. I missed it. As soon as it was gone, I was like, "What? Where'd it go?
Where'd the sand go? Why am I in a swamp now? This is not fun. I want my sand back. You know?
I want to be here.
I want to surf across the sand. Yeah. So the whole game runs at about 14 hours for me on a normal playthrough. Nice size title for this game, I think. Time frame for this sort of game, I think. It doesn't outstay its welcome. It delivers on what it promises and happily walks off into the sunset. I think that's a nice sort of time frame for this sort of game. I know some people like them long and forever, but after playing games like Assassin's Creed and whatever else at the moment, a nice contained adventure is welcome at this time, I think.
Yeah, and I think kind of different for particularly this kind of game. Like it's rare to be like, here, have this kind of epic fantasy experience, but in this tight time frame.
Tight time frame, yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of nice. It's refreshing.
It is. So final thoughts on Atlas Fallen. We might sign off now. What do you think?
I had more fun with it than I expected to. I guess I didn't know a lot about it going in. But yeah, it was more robust, I think, than I expected it to be for a game that is, like we just said, kind of short. Like, full character creation system, and it's not groundbreaking, but you can do some stuff. Combat is great. The upgrade systems are kind of fun. It's there's some like unique ways you can upgrade your gauntlet, and some of them are a bit of a payoff. Like, hey, do you want to be great at attack, but it'll reduce your health or whatever. And you can play with those in kind of fun ways. And yeah, just felt good to play. Good flow, I think.
Yes. I think for me, it surprised me a lot. I mean, Deck 13, like I said, are known for Souls-like games. And while their Souls-like games are some of the ones that I've almost enjoyed, like this, I quite liked the setting of the Surge and things like that. And I played a fair bit of those ones before bouncing off at the usual brick wall of difficulty. I was interested in what they were going to do in something that wasn't a Souls-like, and I think they've really done something well. There's a lot of influences here, obviously, and they've taken bits and pieces from there, but they've kind of made it into their own thing in a way that's fun. And if this was, I guess, a Game Pass game, I'd say it's 100% an ideal Game Pass game. Yeah. I'm not sure what the launch price is.
I think it's like a full price.
It's a full price title.
$70, I think. I might just be pulling that from nowhere, but
yeah. So I'm not sure what sort of price range it's coming in, but I feel like it might be the sort of game that does really well on its first sale, because people are intrigued enough to pick it up. But I reckon if you're looking for a tight, 14-hour adventure that has a really unique combat and movement system, then you can't really go wrong here. There's some rough edges, and the story, like I said, is nothing new at all.
No, not at all. No.
But
that's fun.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah. Honestly, it's fine. And the voice acting's pretty good, so they sell it, pretty well. And some fun
it's like
characters.
Mostly fine, Like, it's fine in some areas and super fun in others, I would say.
Yeah. I did say in my review, it's like David Eddings came back from the grave to write this one.
See that?
So I gave it a B+ in my review, which you can read on Player 2 right now. Jess, do you have a score for it off the top of your head? Go on.
I reckon I would probably agree with you. I reckon it would be in like B+ territory for me. Yeah. It's like obviously not groundbreaking, but it's solid. It's good fun.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining us for another review discussion. You can catch everything we do on player2.net.au. Check out our other review discussions in the link above here. Make sure you check out everything else we do on the website. Thank you for joining us, and we'll catch you next time on Player 2.
Everybody.